And good afternoon, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Kim Davis. Thank you for being here. It is Tuesday, March the 12th, and free NFL free agency is what it always is. It is a frenzy. We're going to get to that and so much more today. But first, thank you for hanging in there, tuning in, and being a part of the conversation. Make sure that you share the video with whatever platform you view this on. If you will share the video and also subscribe on YouTube and the podcast platforms, that would be awesome as we continue to build the Chalk Talk tribe. I have some great news. I've had some of you ask me about this cup that I have. So I will be launching some Chalk Talk products, t-shirts in the coming weeks, and I will also have these tumblers. And so stay tuned. I'm going to carry them on my website. I will tell you about them here on the show, and I'll also post it on my socials when they are in and available. But I've been working to get these in. I'm really excited about it. I've had some of you ask me forever, Kim, we don't have anything that says Chalk Talk. So I've been working on it. I've heard you, and I have been working on it. So stay tuned. All of that is coming, as well as excited to announce a couple of new partners that are going to be joining us with some exciting information, not just that they're partners, but some great information that's going to be helpful to all of you coming up, hopefully in the next few weeks. So welcome to Chalk Talk. So much to get to. The Houston Texans are busy, as are other teams around the National Football League. So we're going to start before we get to the NFL, and because there's a lot to cover in terms of free agency, I'm going to get to as much of that as I can today, but definitely going to highlight what's happening with the Houston Texans, who they've signed, who they've lost, and other big moves around the league. But before that, I'm going to start with the Houston Rockets and the NBA. The Rockets on a road trip, a 3-game road trip. They've won a 3-game road trip. Yes, they had 3 road games before coming back home on Thursday night. They have won the first 2 games on the road, but on Sunday, they had a really scary moment when Alperen Sengun went down in the game against the Kings. They won that game, but he went out, and it looked really kind of scary. That injury, without knowing what was happening, how bad it was until they did, obviously x-rays and an MRI, it looked pretty scary. And so the good news is he was diagnosed with a badly sprained ankle. And the relief is that the injuries to his ankle and knee were not much worse. They thought that there may be some tears or something that required surgery. It doesn't look like that. One of the doctors who I follow online, who is talks about sports injuries, basically said that he said Sengun had gotten lucky. Now, he is not Alperen's doctor, but he follows a lot of sports injuries, and it makes a lot of, gives his expert opinion about non-surgical stuff. And he said he thought it looked like a bone bruise in his left knee and a sprained ankle. That was one option he thought. And the fact that his ACL and meniscus are intact is really, really huge. So what does that mean in terms of how much time he'll miss? I don't know that, those things you don't know yet. Maybe a couple of weeks. It could have ended his season had it been worse. And of course, he has been really not just a rising star with the Rockets. I mean, he's been, their best player, but he's been a rising star in the in the NBA, the National Basketball Association. So good news for Sengun. But I mean, he was wheeled off on a wheelchair. They took him off the court on a wheelchair. So it could have been a lot worse. Here is head coach Ime Udoka after the Kings win, after that win on Sunday. And let you hear from Coach Udoka.
See that, especially that late in the game. But, he's making a play there to try to obviously get back and get a defensive stop. But it doesn't diminish the win in general. I think it was one of our best road wins, and he had a huge part in that, obviously. And we'll see what it is from there. But, hate to speculate or whatever. It looked like he landed awkwardly with the ankle, and he might have rolled it. But we'll see what the x-rays say.
What did you think of Jalen's performance tonight?
Yeah, it was great. Another one. He's stringing together a really good group of games. Not just offensively, but all around, making some great passes, some great reads out of the pick and roll. And like I said, when him and Fred can be the dual handlers, it opens everything up for us. And then defensively, I got two really good scorers, and Fox and Monk, and he did his part there. Fox 7 for 21 across the board. I think it was a little bit of everybody, but he was on him quite a bit and did a great job on defense.
That was that is head coach Ime Udoka after the win on Sunday against the Kings. They're back in Texas, but they're on the road. They're playing in San Antonio, so they will face the Spurs tonight. Then they're back home on Tuesday night, back in the Toyota Center for games on Tuesday. Today's Tuesday. On Thursday, they play host to the Wizards on Thursday, and then on Saturday, they will host the Cavaliers in a rare afternoon game. I think it's like a 4:00 start. But finishing up this road trip tonight in San Antonio before coming back home for a few games in the Toyota Center. And of course, without Alpy, definitely tonight, not sure. And for at least a couple of weeks. And that's just my guess. They've not really confirmed that. And I don't think yet until you see how he responds to treatment. But the good news is that it was not a lot worse. So that is what is happening with the Houston Rockets. Okay, so listen, I see you guys are ready to talk about the Houston Texans. And hey, hello, Aaron. He says, so you're excited about Joe Mixon. Okay, I know we talked last week about what the Texans were going to do and whether or not they were going to, what they do about the running game, what they do in terms of bringing in somebody else. And we talked about Saquon Barkley, which they went after Saquon Barkley. Barkley, of course, is signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Texans were in it, but they got outbid on that one. So that didn't happen. Hey, hello, Sylvia, my sister. Good morning or good afternoon. Welcome. Yep, addition by addition. Exactly. Addition by addition. So here's what happened with the Bengals. They signed Zach. They signed it. They were going to release Mixon, was the understanding. But it helps them from a salary cap standpoint to be able to make the trade. And so they made the deal with the Rockets, with the Texans. Let me just let you hear from one of the guys that covers this, from the NFL Network, talking about this move and how it was made. But I also want to say that there's a young man in Houston. You've seen him on. It's been once. He was on Chalk Talk a couple of years ago. Cody Davis. He has a podcast called Locked on Texans. He's the one who actually broke that story about the Texans being interested in Mixon, that they had missed out on some of the other top running backs. There had been some movement, but that they were interested in Mixon. He reported that on yesterday, and then he was the first one to report actually that they there we go. Let's bring this in. That they were signing him. So here is a little conversation about that signing.
The Bengals are moving on from Joe Mixon, but they are, instead of releasing him and making him a free agent, trading him to the Houston Texans. Sources say the deal, which just came together in the last little bit here, lands the Texans the running back that they really have been searching for. And they have been in the market for a running back, I would say, most of the last several days, several weeks, trying to make sure that they have a complement to Dameon Pierce. They wanted to re-sign Motor Singletary. He obviously ends up going to the Giants, took a deal, kind of got priced out a little bit. He ends up going to the Giants. They stayed in the market. And look, they were in on all the big guys. They did all the research. They did all the work. They end up landing Joe Mixon now in a trade. So the Cincinnati Bengals get Zach Moss, plan to release Joe Mixon. Instead of releasing him, they send him to Texans, another weapon in C.J. Stroud's offense.
So, Joe Mixon's coming to the Texans. So they needed a running back. They made the deal. They're bringing in Joe Mixon. And here's one of the things that yesterday I was following some of the conversations from people in the market, not so much fans, but really some of my colleagues who were a little concerned, like, what is happening? The Houston Texans aren't making any moves. All of the good guys are leaving. So here's a few things that have happened. The Houston Texans did lose Jonathan Grenard. He was their, he was a he was their defensive end. He was a defensive end. He became a free agent. Last year was arguably his best year. He'd been plagued with some injuries early in his career, and he was out a little bit last year as well. I think they would have liked to have had Jonathan, but they would have had to get him for a different price. They weren't willing to go all in. He signed a deal with Minnesota, so he is going to be with the Vikings. That's a loss for them. But I was not terribly surprised when they didn't negotiate anything early and it became a free agent. Pardon me. I didn't think that they would sign him. They also lost linebacker Blake Cashman. Cashman is also going to the Vikings. I was a little surprised about Cashman. Cashman has said he wanted to remain in Houston. I don't think his number was real high, but they lost Cashman. They have made some signings, but they lost Cashman. They lost Grenard. You heard on that clip, they lost motor, Devin Singletary. He's the guy that came in and ended up replacing Damian Pierce last season in the running back position. So he came in. They wanted to re-sign Motor, but it's about the number. So we have to keep a couple of things in mind. So going into this offseason, we're all saying, wow, the Houston Texans are good on cap space. I think the only two teams that had more probably cap space were the Commanders and Bears. Don't quote me on that, but I think so they were pretty high up there in terms of available money to spend. But Nick Caserio as a general manager, remember the way the Patriots used to do it. They wouldn't necessarily just go all in and break the bank on free agents. And so here's something that I thought was interesting that I wanted to share with you guys. This is something that was on Twitter. One of my colleagues, and we sometimes do some stuff on Fox at the same time. So he said, the Texans don't need to impersonate thirsty sugar daddies at spring break during free agency. Some of y'all need an NFL history refresher. March desperation rarely pans out, and yet some of you seem more angry today than you were after the playoff loss in Baltimore. So he brings up this point that's an interesting reminder, because remember, Nick Caserio, the Texans GM, has spent his entire career prior to coming to Houston with the Patriots. Patriots fans used to laugh at all the big spenders in free agency until they tried that a few seasons ago, and look at how that worked out. So historic losers like the Dolphins, Commanders, Jaguars, Bears, Raiders, and Jets have won many marches. How many times has that worked? So, interesting point, and I can't really argue with them on that. I mean, it's about winning in the fall, right? So what does March really get you? You got to have some discipline. You've got to have, your budget and what your number is, and understanding what it is that you're going to spend. Hey there, Jonathan Branch. Long time no see, my friend. Welcome. And also Kim Edwards Williams. This is one of the founders of Jinka. You hear that? I love Jinka, and also Eyebrow Energy. My eyebrows. I'm done. Okay. But anyway, I digress. Welcome, Kim. Hey, my other sister Ellen is watching as well. The gang's all here. So the Texans are not breaking the bank, but they are getting some players. So let me tell you what else they've done. So about Joe Mixon. We just talked about that. And they brought back a couple players for depth. They brought in Lonnie Johnson Jr. He was here. He was actually drafted in 2020 by the Texans. He's a defensive back, but he's really known for special teams. He was with the Saints last year. He played probably about 76% of the time on special teams, 15% of the time on defense. They've signed him. They re-signed Dalton Schultz, a tight end, to a 3-year deal. Of course, Dalton Schultz came over from Dallas. I wasn't all in on Dalton Schultz. I know that most people in the market seem to be. Okay. There's really no risk in signing him unless down the road, if Brevin Jordan continues to climb in terms of live up to the potential that we're starting to see from him. If he can stay healthy, then that may be an issue. But right now, no real issue because they were good with the number. I just wasn't all in on Dalton Schultz. He's not a great run blocker. And he just dropped some passes that were in his hands. I struggle with that. So I know I need to let that go. So I'm letting that go. Dalton Schultz is back. They also re-signed kicker Kaimi Fairbairn. Good with that. Like Kaimi last year, he missed 5 games. That's the most games he's missed since being here. Prior to this past season, he missed, I think the most he missed was 3 games. So we're going to say that was, last year was not the norm. And so if he stays healthy, you're good with that. They re-signed Desmond King to a 1-year deal. Desmond, of course, came back. He was with the Texans. They cut him. He went to Pittsburgh. He was cut there. Whatever those issues are, he came back to Houston. He was very productive. They signed him to a 1-year deal. And so Desmond is very productive. And so he's going to be 30 in December. So in terms of, age for a defensive back, you may think he's starting to get there. But as long as he stays healthy and it goes well, there's no risk with the 1-year deal. So here's some other things they've done. They signed Jeff Okuda as a defensive back. So the thought is that he's going to be a solid number 2. And then I've told you that they missed out on Blake Cashman. Blake Cashman, who was, their best linebacker in coverage last year. They lost him, and he of course led in tackles a couple of times, led the league in some areas, was a defensive player of the year, of the year, of the week award, not of the year. Scratch that. So we know that they lost the linebacker. They did sign Azeez Al-Shaair, who has played with D'Amico. They were together in San Francisco when D'Amico was linebacker coach, and then also when D'Amico was defensive coordinator. He's a familiar person. He's coming over from the Titans. And then they also signed the defensive lineman, an edge guy in Danico Autry. And so that's somebody who also is coming over from the Titans within the division. They signed a punter because they lost Cam Johnston, right? Cam Johnston has gone to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they signed all-pro punter Tommy Townsend. And early in the week, they signed I always get his name wrong. Fola Runsi. He's a defensive tackle that played with the Jaguars. So they made some moves to get some depth. It's not over, but just be patient. And I tell you, I trust D'Amico, and we'll just see. I'm being open-minded about what it is that Nick Cannon will do, and what are the moves they're going to make. Many people have asked about what are they going to do at receiver. Oh, they did re-sign receiver Noah Brown, who last year had he had one game, I think it was against the Bengals, where he had 172 yards receiving. So, when he was healthy, he was really productive. He had a couple of games where he was just on it. And then he had a couple of games where he was banged up. So, it's about who can stay healthy, and how available you are determines a lot how effective you're going to be. So how would you rate what's happening with the Texans so far? I would just say so far so good. It's still early. This is day 2. And so I wasn't really sure about Saquon Barkley. That was a guy who would have been a great fit. Let me tell you a little bit about a couple of guys. It's Danico Autry, who's coming in, which was important after they lost Jonathan Grenard. He had a career high in 11.5 sacks with the Titans last year. And the only risk is that it's a 2-year deal worth reportedly $10 million guaranteed. The guarantee is $10 million. He'll be 34 before the season starts. So will his age catch up? We'll see, how healthy he is. And in terms of Al-Shaair, the linebacker, he signed a 3-year deal. And, I mentioned the connection between he and D'Amico. The risk is the money was a little expensive, as his deal is going to average more than $10 million a year. And so we'll see. He's only had 2 seasons with more than 100 tackles out of 5. And his coverage skills were rated as kind of inconsistent. So, we'll see what happens. We also talk about the D'Amico Ryans effect, right? When the players get with D'Amico, how their production changes, and how, you have to factor in, how great he is with his defensive players. We saw the improvement really just game by game last year with Christian Harris, who is in his second year after being banged up in his first year. So listen, a lot of stuff to see. There could be things happening since I've been on with you on the show over the last 30 minutes or so. I'm not sure, but it is not over. It's early. Free agency is underway. So a few other moves that have happened. We talked about this last week with Aaron Wilson, who joined us. I didn't ask him to come back today because he is in the throes of free agency. Like he's a guy that is, he's a beat guy. So he's working the phones and reporting stuff that's happening, not just here with the Texans, but all around the league. So one of the people we talked about last week was Russell Wilson. And so Russell Wilson does have a new home. He signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He will be with the Steelers this fall. So what that means is the Steelers can sign him for the league minimum of $1 million, and then the Denver Broncos will have to pay the rest of the salary because the Broncos owe him $39 million. So now they only have to pay him $38 million. Okay, so it's really no risk for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I was listening to conversation about Russell Wilson on some of the national shows when I heard someone say, well, he's not the Russell Wilson that he was when he was in his prime in terms of productivity with the Seahawks, because if so, the Seahawks would not have let him go. That's true. But even the Russell Wilson who is not in his prime is a Russell Wilson that's very productive, right? And I'm going to just tell you because I looked it up earlier in terms of his stats. So in 2023, the year where he was benched by Sean Payton, who, if you follow me, I'm not a huge Sean Payton fan. I'm just not, him yelling and screaming at Russell Wilson on the side. I just thought that was a lot for you to be talking to a grown man like that. I'm not a huge fan. Anyway, his completion percentage in 2023, last year with the Broncos, was 64.4%. He threw for more than 3,000 yards. He had 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Okay, that was his 2023 year. That's the year that he's coming off of where he was benched for the final 2 games. In 2022, the year with Nathaniel Hackett, which is just a weird season. It was not a great year for him. 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. But that whole Broncos team with Nathaniel Hackett was just, I wouldn't even, it's unfortunate that has to even be in his, as a part of his resume. His last season in 2021, when he played with the Seahawks, his completion percentage was right at 65%. He threw for 3,100 yards. He had 40 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, and his passer rating was 105. So, can he still play? Absolutely, he can still play. There's just no doubt that there's something left in the tank for Russell Wilson. He's got to be in the right place. I think it's a great move for Pittsburgh, and it's a really good move for Russell Wilson. Another player that we talked about, and we asked Aaron about last week was, what about Kirk Cousins? Kirk Cousins, another quarterback that, Kirk Cousins seems to keep getting jobs and keep getting checks. And so I saw somebody on Twitter or Instagram, one of those sites yesterday, the rapper, he said, what does Kirk Cousins have on you people? Anyway, Kirk Cousins is going to Atlanta. He will be a Falcon. And so that's where he has landed this offseason. Last I checked, nothing's happened in terms of Justin Fields, the Chicago Bears quarterback. And so we'll see if the Bears are able to make a move for him. Kirk Cousins off the table, Atlanta off the table, Pittsburgh off the table in terms of where he might end up. We will see. So those are a couple of the people that we wondered about. Derrick Henry is another guy, free agent running back who has been known to wreak havoc, played with the Titans. He used to be a Texans killer. The Texans did a good job on keeping him in check the couple of times they played this past season. But he has signed with the Baltimore Ravens. So you've got that movement. And I think I mentioned that motor Devin Singletary, he is gone. He took a deal to play for the New York Giants. I know he wanted to come back to Houston, but guys are going to get paid and to get the deals that they can and that they feel they deserve. And somebody sent me inbox me earlier and said, but was it that big of a difference with him going to the Giants, what the Giants offered? Because the taxes are going to eat into what he makes. And I said, I don't know that when guys are thinking about those deals, that they think about it to that degree. I'm not really sure what all went into it. There may be some other things that we don't know about, but he has signed with the New York Giants. Saquon Barkley is with the Eagles. It's huge for the Eagles. And for all of my Dallas Cowboy fans who follow, respectfully, I don't think your team has really done anything as of yet. It's been pretty quiet. The only thing that I've really seen about the Cowboys is that Dak's brother has made some other ill-advised comment online. So that is all I can tell you about what's happening with the Dallas Cowboys. Before we I'm going to put a pin in talking about the NFL for a moment because I want to jump to some Astros stuff. It's so easy to get super bogged down with what's happening in the NFL and forget about the Astros. They are in spring training and we're only at 2-3 weeks from opening day. Opening day is March 28th, where the Astros will be opening at home, taking on the New York Yankees. That's a Thursday. So that should be exciting, starting the season with their new manager in tow, Joe Espada. Speaking of Joe Espada, I'm going to let you hear from Joe at spring training. So the Astros are playing today. They're playing, I think that they're playing the Marlins today. They are 8-8 in spring training. They lost to the Tigers on yesterday afternoon. Framber Valdez was the starting pitcher. He pitched 4 innings. Gave up 4 hits, 1 earned run, but he struck out 4. So it was a pretty effective start by him. Jose Altuve was 2 for 3 at the plate. He had an RBI, drove in 2 of the Astros 3 runs. Jeremy Pena was 1 for 2 with a double and a run scored. And center field, which we don't know yet how that's going to shake out, but Jake Myers was 1 of 2, had a run scored, also contributed offensively. So, they're getting what Joe has said is he's just trying to get people at bats, get them loose, get some innings in. But here's Joe Espada talking about really the starting pitching and what he saw yesterday. And he said he was pleased. Here's Joe Espada from spring training.
You know what? I thought we pitched well. This time during spring, it's a good time for evaluation of our players because pitchers they get to stay in there longer. Position players, they get to stay in the game longer. So the process of evaluation it's better just because you're facing better qualities, guys competing for jobs. So I do like this part of spring training, and you kind of saw some of that today. But I thought we pitched well. Some good ABs there at the end. We made some defensive plays, and overall was a good quality day.
What did you thought of Contreras?
He had that inning in Clearwater where it was pretty impressive. And then he bounced back after 1 day rest and then threw really 2 good quality innings today. So that was really good to watch.
So today, the Hunter Brown is taking the mound as the starting pitcher as they take on the Marlins. And somebody yesterday asked Joe Espada, what about the lineups? Like, when are you going to start looking at putting together lineups? Here's what.
You know what?
Like 3 days in.
Yes. You know what? I think next week it's when we start kind of sitting down and start thinking about lineups and, things get real. But right now I'm just trying to get some guys on my bats, trying to line up some stuff. But next week I think that's when it gets real.
So we'll see what happens next week. I'm curious about really center field. I mean, the infield is pretty set, right? We know what to expect with infield. We know that Yanner is going to be the starting catcher opening day. And I'm going to say this, that I think people are going to, and I hope that Yanner does well, but I think that fans will see, and maybe even some of the media members are going to see, why Maldi was a part of this team. Not that he should come in and be the catcher, but having that veteran leadership behind the plate is a really big thing. You've heard me talk about it ad nauseum if you follow the show for any period of time, but we'll see. So that's going to be different. Him behind the plate, but I think it's the outfield. I think it's center field is the question, and then it's probably the order. We know that Hader is going to be the closer, and which means you got Presley as kind of the he can come in the 8th inning or 7th, so your back end of the bullpen is strong. But we'll see what they end up doing, what the opening with the and when Joe talks about lineups, he's also probably talking about the opening day roster, getting down to that number, and I'm just curious to see how it all shakes out. It should be interesting. Hey, good afternoon, Charles Lamar Drayton. It's good to see you, my friend. I also want to remind you guys, I didn't do this last week, and Charles reminded me. Last Tuesday, of course, was the election. There will be runoffs, so make sure that you vote in the runoffs. And listen, guys, if you're not registered to vote, get registered, right? Just get registered today. And if you vote in each election, you're going to stay registered. You're not going to have to re-register. If you vote, if you register and then you're always voting, you will remain registered. It's super important. Remember, if voting was not important, there would not be such an effort to keep you from being able to vote. And there is an all-out effort to keep, a certain segment of the population, us, people that look like me, from being able to vote, and others. So make sure that you are registered, exercise your right to vote, and be prepared for the runoffs. It's super important. So I'd love to send you a copy of my book. Sure, send it to me. I would, send me a note, inbox me offline, talk to me, Davida. First of all, thank you for tuning in. Let me know what your book is about. And I'd love for you to, and I'll send you information on how you can send me a copy. Thank you for chiming in and wanting to send me your book. A couple of updates. I am still working on the book. Hopefully it'll be finished shortly. As I mentioned, these cups, I'm not far from being able to have those on my website for you guys to purchase. I'm working on a way to personalize them so it can say Chalk Talk. Also working on the Chalk Talk shirts. Want to tell you that I've taken down the Kimmy Treats website. I'm always talking about Kimmy Treats. I still do have some Kimmy Treats. There's a Kimmy Treats Instagram page and a Facebook page. If you're interested, you can reach me there. And if you are interested in that, I am just making sure that I'm really focusing. And listen, I talk about this as an example of sometimes you have to just refocus on what are the things that are most important, right? The communication part of my business, my show, and then things that support Chalk Talk. So the line that will have some apparel, shirts that I am designing, and coming up with the ability to get these tumblers that are for Chalk Talk. Right now, I have the football ones. I have identified some for baseball and some for basketball, but I haven't been able to get them yet. So I'm working on that. I will keep you posted, but you'll be able to get all of those things from my website, kimydavis.com. I'll let you know as soon as I have them. We'll have an official launch or something where you can go online and check it all out. There's a Chalk Talk tab on my website, and that's where these things will be located. So I'm excited about being able to share those things with you. And I also want to remind you about our good friends over at I Love Jinka. You can reach them at ilovejinka.com. And you, of course, can find the products in HEB. It is turmeric paste. It comes in the paste. It comes in capsules. And it comes in a powder that you'll soon be able to get. But it is great for all things inflammation. great to reduce inflammation, not to create it. So if you've never tried it, I would say give yourself a chance. Go try it. I Love Jinka has been a huge supporter of Chalk Talk from for quite some time, and they've built this company and this brand, and really have wanted to build it to help offer something for the community. So you can put it in coffee and make yourself a golden latte. You can put it in cocktails and do something with it there. I'm told it helps to avoid hangovers. I'm not a big drinker, so that's not my challenge, but I think it's I've heard Kim talk about that. But it's tasty. Yeah, I've put it in things like cornbread, and it tastes like not cinnamon. There is cinnamon in it, but you can do it. You can do any number of things with it. You can cook with it. You can put it in your oatmeal. You can put it in your smoothie. It makes it taste like nut. Makes it taste like makes a vanilla smoothie taste like eggnog. So it's good, and it's good for you. If you happen to go to HEB, this is where you find it.
Here at HEB, in the Healthy Living Department, the probiotics, you can find Jinka 7 days a week.
Yeah. Look at that Jinka sale. Look at that Jinka.
I Love Jinka. So there's a lot of I Love Jinka sales. I'm just checking before we get out of here to make sure that I haven't missed anything else. So it looks like free agent linebacker Patrick Queen is going to sign a 3-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm looking at somebody say, okay, Casario, you didn't just allow this deal with Alshire keep us from Queen, did you? I mean, there's, I don't know. We'll see. But I'm just looking to make sure that the Texans haven't done anything else really. Let me just check the guys who tend to be on it. There's a mutual interest between the Texans and Vikings Pro Bowl free agent defensive end Danielle Hunter, per league sources, but nothing imminent. It's a fluid situation. I'm looking at this from Aaron Wilson. He was with us last week. Chase Young is to visit with the Panthers and the Saints per a league source, and expected to visit with the Titans also. So those are some things that are happening around the league. Listen, it is fluid. Oh, you're very welcome. I appreciate you, and I will be on the lookout for your email. You can also send me an email, kim@kimydavis.com. That's my email address, or you can inbox me. If you email me, I might get it sooner, but I will be on the lookout today for the inbox, as I'm not always on there because I get so much stuff. But I'll be on the lookout, Davita. I hope I was saying it right, Davita, Miss Davita Young. But yeah, so there's still some activity happening. The Texans need depth. They needed depth if they had kept everybody up front. And you heard D'Amico say after they lost to the Ravens in the playoff game to end their season that they really needed to get better up front. The strong up front, better up front, deeper up front, however he said it. But the front seven is really important. And so they lost Jonathan Grenard, Sheldon Rankins. I would think they've got to bring him back. But Malik Collins is still there. He signed. I thought that Sheldon Rankins was very productive and very effective last year. So we'll see. We'll see what they do, if they're going to try to get somebody else. And that is interesting about, losing out. You lose out on some players and lack of flashes in free agency. Oh, I'm just checking to make sure I didn't miss anything else. The Bears have agreed to terms with tight end Gerald Everett. So here's the other thing. I mean, I know that if you follow the Texans or you're a Texans fan, you probably would like to see them do something else offensively, get another weapon offensively. They did sign Joe Mixon. That was super important. But they re-signed Noah Brown. I don't know how you feel about that. And, we'll just see what they do. Day 2 is it's noon. No, it's 2:00 on day 2. We'll see if they make any other splashes, but they have some holes and they haven't filled them yet. Of course, the draft is coming, and you work toward the draft, but you really had hoped that they would do something significant in free agency, and maybe they have. They did have cap room. I don't think anybody would say go out and just spend it all, but you've got the money to say, okay, now the team is trending upward, and if we're going to continue to do that, and I say we, I'm talking, so if I'm the Texans brass, then we've got to make sure we have the tools to do it. So with that, that's going to do it for me today. We are out of time. Thank you for being a part of Chalk Talk. Make sure that you share this show with your online community. I'd appreciate that. So I'm thanking you in advance. Just hit share the video wherever you're watching it. You can just share the video, and make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel so you'll get notifications about when we're going live. Even if you don't watch it on YouTube, you can always go back, and it's probably easier to find on YouTube than on some of the other platforms. You can find it there, YouTube and LinkedIn, Instagram, because you can find just the videos. But hey, register to vote. Make sure that you are an informed voter. And if you say, Kim, you've been telling us to register to vote for 10 years, 11 years. That's how long I've been doing Chalk Talk, 11 years. Great. So of course I'm registered. Then I'm going to encourage you to get somebody else registered. And for those of you who are parents and you're registered and you have kids that are not of age to vote yet, take them with you. That's so cool when I'm at a polling place and I see a parent bring in their young person, bring in their kid, because they're exposing them to voting at a young age. And I was exposed to voting before I could vote. So I could not wait until I turned 18 so that I could vote. We want to encourage that so that young people get excited about it, that then they don't have to be convinced to vote. So expose your kids to it, take them with you, because you can do that. You can take your underage kids with you in the polling place, and they can watch you vote and learn about the process. So with that said, we're out of time. Have a great, great week. I may come back on later in the week and do something else live with either Aaron or one of the other guys who beat guys who are eat, sleep, and breathe what's happening with signings and free agency as an update. But I'll post it, of course, in advance and let you know. In the meantime, remember, do something kind for yourself and do something kind for somebody else. Make it a great week, everybody. Peace.